So I would like to welcome our next speaker, Ania Oswald, who is a researcher dealing with art and culture and the ways the world is perceived and constructed. She focuses on complex transformative patterns. She researches acts, ways of behavior that change the way of thinking. Currently, she's been focused on transformative processes in regional and urban development with multifunctional structures as well. So, Anya, the floor is yours. Thank you, Jana. Thank you. I think there should be many more people in the audience. The advantage of this situation is that I was invited here that we are a small group, is that we can coordinate in a fantastic way. However, a larger participation would be appreciated. So we decided to have a look at art, at sustainable growth. So I find both these terms a bit difficult, not because of what is hiding because of behind them, this environmental awareness and art, that's understandable, but it's more about labels that are put upon them. So we'll discuss about different arts. There is no one art, such as there is no one society or one administrative organization unit. So we always need to have a look at what is included in this one term. So I'd like to give you one takeaway thought for this way we want to follow. When we think about art, we as a society in a given situation, we need to think about certain defined patterns and labels that we have when we think about art. When we think about art, we think about different pieces of art that are exhibited in different places, biennales, they win different awards. And that's a very well-known stereotype. That's what I know. That's what I hear from my students, from people that I've been guiding around the city, the stereotype that, well, artists, they earn a lot. But this may be just 1% of artists, the 1% that is also socially visible in the social reception. This is art that enjoys attention, and that decides also about how art as a whole is perceived. So this element, strictly related to the economic system we have been operating, it's almost 200 years old. And we got into this very fast revolving dynamics. It makes us almost dizzy. So this development, this pressure to go faster, quicker, sooner, this logic that is followed by our economy and our art, the whole avant-garde is based on that. So one direction, one genre of art decides about a brand, a style, and it imposes it, and later on it's exceeded by other artistic genres. Until now, we still have some artists who think, well, do and think whatever you want, and that's how they want to find their place in the market, and they try to create their own label, their own brand that is even more original than before. We know that artworks can be sometimes very expensive. We know how high prices at auctions can go. And we need to pay attention to that. Carsten mentioned that, and I'm very grateful to that. We need to think how we define art we are discussing here. Because for quite a long time, and yesterday we've been discussing, and we've, so to say, agreed that art has a certain social dimension. It is socially responsible. It has a message and content. What is implied by that, it doesn't really work, because art has been marginalized, and it will be marginalized. This is why artists depend so much on temporary structural support, so different funds. And if art cannot be present in its own role, citizens tend to think, well, it's unimportant. Several citizens don't think about art at all. They are not aware about what that is. So I find it's great that there are so many women among us. But once we emphasize that if we are in a feminized group here, we are marginalized once again. So this is a topic that I've been dealing with and that I've been coping to. The situation is very complex, and it refers to everything that makes us be ourselves. What keeps us alive on the one hand, but then it may make us crash with the logic. So this logic of continuous linear growth, every day we need to go further and further, be better and better. This madness about optimizing everything. Just to get through this way of thinking and instead move from this linear thinking into circular idea and circular economy is a great task. We may think that's an equally mad and equally megalomaniac, we could say, but we saw yesterday that it could work in art, that there are different ways of thinking. And I think that the examples that we saw yesterday, Marek's examples in Poznań were excellent. Works of Paweł Altheimer's, whose work I've been observing for 15 years. I still have this food souvenir from 15 years ago. So it's about tilting our perspective to have a mad perspective. What I have behind my head, my back on the slide is it is a provocation. It was placed in Munich on a building several years ago. If the world would have been a bank, you would have saved it a long time ago. That's the slogan, like this. Imagine a banner like this, 5-6 meters wide, broad, on a hyper-real estate, a bank that was saved with several million or billion of dollars from collapse. And Greenpeace found a fantastic way to express that in one sentence. To express this contradiction and the gap between art and economy. When I went to the Biennale in Venice, this is what I missed when I was snacking and watching art and sailing in gondola. This is what I lacked during this Biennale, because I also wanted to see this kind of active art. So the question is, who is able to understand this kind of art and this kind of a poster? I think that we need more activism also in our understanding of art, some more anarchy and political awareness. I understand that in this group I'm just saying some obvious things. So I know that, just as Carton said, that we need to shift boundaries in local administration bodies. I really like Ola's approach. He's going to present it in a moment. Now I'd like to present one example of a project one exemplary project because I believe in regional attachment. You definitely need to know the things that you talk about. This is Dr. Lavender and his wife Helen. Lavender is an artist from Stuttgart. He became famous as a performative artist. He gained his fame like that. Maybe you remember him how in Peking he sneaked among the soldiers of the terracotta soldiers. He got dressed, he disguised as a soldier, and there was a great scandal out of that. So he had to be diplomatically taken out of the prison in Lockenbad in northern Brandenburg. There is a powerhouse from 1936. This is a lignite power plant producing power plant. Brandenburg itself is a post-industrial textile city. It has lots of Bauhaus architecture, so it was very self-conscious and proud city, but after 1990 it has experienced a collapse. So Pablo Wendel, he bought this powerhouse and he created electrics project. So you can see a part of a project that is carrying out. So performance electrics looks very similar to global General Electric, so this connotation is very clear, and he runs different projects with his wife there. What they have been doing there, this is not the turbine hall in the power plant. This is an old swimming pool in the same city. So they had a happening there that before was that previously was awarded at the Biennale, and then they decided to perform it also in their town. I think it's a great idea to move this popular and famous art to bring it back to the region. And they were really successful also in bringing this old coal power plant to life. They were able to install there some old wooden power plants, pellet-based power plants. So they take some wood chips, some production side effects, and they produce energy in old converted diesel generators. Then they sell it in different artistic actions to inhabitants and investors. There was a Lipstick-Aktionen, you may remember that. You can become a shareholder in a performers. So this is how it also how it works also in this area. So all projects are to be financed with this artistically produced energy from wood. And this is also how it works in our vineyards that we've been working on. The last year was very poor, but fortunately this year we were able to crop 4 times as much as we usually do. So I hope we are going to be able to earn something for our art. You can see what else they were able to do. Pablo and his wife, they produced a community kitchen where they reuse the food that has been past its expiry date, and whatever cannot be eaten anymore, it's also burned in the power place. They also built the petrol service in a camouflage to charge electric cars. So these are also very regular artistic exhibitions that the two carries out. So they are simultaneously within and outside the traditional art system. So there are more examples like this, of course. So Hans Fischer is from the US. He declares that he is a part of the artistic world. He was also described in New York Times. So they are involved in this game, and they have some international scholarship participants. So there is also a scholarship that was opened in 1920, just before the 2020, just before the pandemics. But they are diverting from the well-checked, proven artistic paths as well to new ways. I think this is a good preliminary introduction to what I'm going to say. So what they do, they are trying to transform the structures that are already there. So these are some extracts from their 3 principal theses. Initially, I thought that the lecture is going to be in English. That's why I prepared my slides in English, but I think it's not that complicated for you to be able to translate it in a different way. Back to Germany or to German or to Polish. So, playing with the impossible, the first rule, is an assumption which makes us think what we want to do out of things that perhaps still do not exist. What else we can give to the world? Progressive deceleration, yet another important point. So quitting this thought of faster, quicker, further, and instead think where we can save some resources and where we can reuse them and reproduce them. So collaboration, not competition, the third point. So how we can find a common ground, local partners to organize different exhibitions, to provide different services, and how we can get together and create a local cooperative. So that was my input into our discussion. For me, it's very important that we should stay aware about what kind of art we discuss, what art means for us, in a very emphatic and empathic way. We should focus on what art production means for us, how we work as art producers. How we perceive art when we experience it at exhibitions, or when we see a poster by a guerrilla group or Friends for Future. Or I find that Extinction Rebellion, it's an excellent pun as well. So I'm definitely on the activist side of art.
Ania Oswald, bardzo serdecznie.
Ania Oswald, very thank you very much for presenting the exceptional quality of art and going back to the basic of creating a vision and presenting solutions for the future, which are being practiced in those fascinating ways, like in Lubina, for example, the alternative economic system connected with art, or like you do with Karsten, having your own winery and vineyard, promoting artistic approaches full of authenticity, going back to the origin of art, which in contemporary art connected with capitalism and market is missing. The vision for the future, that is missing.